You're listening to ReBoot.
ReBoot.
A study from the government revealed that only 50% of returning vets who need veteran mental health treatment actually get those services. Both active duty service members and veterans face barriers to treatment for mental issues. The fear of being seen as weak, the stigma associated with mental health issues, personal embarrassment about service-related mental disabilities, long wait times to receive mental health treatment. These issues are real. And this podcast understands that. Welcome to ReBoot. The war isn't over yet. David Kagi and Jared Standiford, with a combined 20 years of service in the U.S. Navy, both have had many struggles with mental health, and both see a growing epidemic in the military community. But we're working together to reach out to help the community recognize that mental health is important. This is ReBoot, and this is David and Jared.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of ReBoot. The war isn't over yet. My name is David. I have Jared here. How are you doing this week, Jared?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Doing okay. So it's 24th of July. I'm a little over 2 weeks now home out of the Navy on my adventure to becoming a civilian again. It's interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, I know my experience was that it was much different than I expected it to be, I guess. I don't know what I expected it to be, but it was different. And I think I expected it to be easier, to be honest, and it was not very easy.
Yeah, I think the big thing for me, the most difficult part for me right now is that, I think it's a little bit extra to what most people go through because most people don't spend 2 years away from their family. Like, you have those geo bachelors that do it.
Yeah, and that
like
situation
few and far between.
Yeah, sorry, I got to plug my computer in here.
No worries.
But I have never understood the whole geo batch thing. I don't understand how people do it. I don't. I guess I read I can't remember what book it was. I read a book that was about war, and they talked about, wars are not fought only by childless men. And that's a true statement, but it's still something that I had never really, I can't understand geobatching for that long. I can't imagine what you went through like that. That's a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I was able to come home early a couple times.
Yeah.
But, so I mean, that's been pretty difficult. The kids, my oldest is, I think, like, cool now. I think we're good. Like, my middle child, he's hard to read in general. But he's been very touch and go, I would say. Like, he'll be real hot 1 second, and then he'll get real moody with me real fast, like out of nowhere. And it just seems to be a little weird. But love him to death. But I don't think he's settled on me being home yet. Like, he'll occasionally be like, I missed you while you were gone. It's like, well, yeah, I know, but I'm here now. So,
yeah.
And then my daughter is just so clingy to my wife that she doesn't care if I'm here.
Well, it does matter that you're there, and I'm glad that
Right.
you're there now. But I get it. It's integrating back in. I mean, kids like that, they don't understand how to deal with a lot of their emotions yet, and this is all a new thing for them, and it's complicated, and they probably, like your middle child, he probably just doesn't understand. And he knew what to think when you were gone because that was normal for him. He knew
Right.
that, daddy's not here and I miss him. And now you're home and he doesn't know what to think.
Right.
And,
yeah, he's only 5. And, he remembers me living in the house when we were in Connecticut.
mm-hmm.
So he knows what it's like for me to live with him. It's just, he's not used to it. He has to get used to it all over again. For my daughter, for pretty much probably what she can remember, I haven't been around. She's only 3. I was gone for 2 years and some change. So, I mean, she had just turned 1 when I went to Virginia. So she doesn't even remember what it was like to have me around. So this is like completely new territory for her. So I
don't know if that will be harder or less difficult. I don't know, but
yeah,
it's I'm sure it's a process, and you're in it. So
Yes.
It's but yeah, I wish you the best with that. I mean, I'm sure it's good to be home. It's good to see the family, and even if it's stressful at times, I'm sure it's better than being in the Navy.
Yes. Speaking of that, job search. So my job search has been, as I've said in the past, just very rough. I feel like a lot of places aren't hiring right now just because of everything going on with COVID. I just did have an interview today though. So a recruiter, so I have like my resume on LinkedIn, I have my resume on Indeed. I'm all over the place. And a recruiter came across my resume on Indeed, I think it was. And so he contacted me about a week ago with a job lead that's in Auburn, which is like a 45-minute drive for me. So it's not super close, but it's within reasonable driving distance. And, so he had told me about this. It's with a plastic company. I don't want to say their name until I know for sure that I have the job, I'm working there or whatever. But, I had an interview today. Apparently, he had told me yesterday that they were very eager to talk to me. And I was like, okay, cool. This sounds good. And so the guy called me. It was like the operations manager was doing the phone interviews. He gave me a call today, and we had a real good conversation for about 30 minutes. They're like a rapidly expanding company right now, and they're looking for people who are very mechanically inclined. So I was like, oh, hey, that's me. Hey.
Yeah, you fit that.
Yeah, people with experience fixing mechanical equipment, blah, blah, blah. And, I kept just kind of shooing in as much information that, hey, I'm more than just like a technician. Like I can do a lot more than that. And, it went pretty good. And, my recruiter had said, hey, make sure you give me a call back when it's over so I know it's done, or whatever. And, I tried calling him and he didn't pick up the phone. Well, that was because the guy who I interviewed with had called him back immediately and told him he wanted me on site for an on-site interview as soon as possible. And I was like, yes!
Yeah, that feels good. And that's, like you said, even though it's 45 minutes away, it's a lead, and that's something to put food on the table. It works.
Yeah, and it's, I don't know what the pay is going to end up being, obviously. We didn't really talk salary, but the recruiter had some idea of what the salary would be, and he was saying it was probably going to be somewhere in the mid-20s, upper 30 or lower 30s. And I was like, I could deal with that. That's great starting. And even he kind of alluded that depending on where they bring me in at, that I'd have pretty good chance at upward mobility too. So I'm like, all right, cool.
Sometimes you get into companies like that. Well, it all depends on the structure of the company. And some companies are just not, the way they're made, they're just not very upward mobile, and some are. But I think with companies that are expanding like that, I think that does open up some opportunities, because if they're expanding to different things and you're willing to take on more responsibility, they kind of, they probably would rather promote the person they already know and hire an unknown for the higher positions. And
right. Well, that's actually what he said. So it's a family company, and he said they're very family oriented. Like he was telling me, he was trying to sell me on the family side of things, because we were talking about my kids and stuff and how I wanted to be around them more when we were talking about like shift availability. And I don't know of any companies that really do this. Like my dad's company has done it since I was a kid, but they still do family Christmas parties. Like they do an adult Christmas party and a kid's Christmas party for all the kids at the company. I was like, that's really odd. And like, you don't see that too often in this day and age. I thought that was really cool in itself, but, yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. I don't know. It's plastic molding. I don't know how well my skills will transfer over. I mean, a valve is a valve, a pump is a pump.
Yeah.
Mechanical systems are mechanical systems. But I'm excited about it. It's something, and it's a job. And my paychecks are going to be running out of the Navy soon, so I need something.
Yeah. And, if there's one thing that nukes usually are, is we're usually pretty adaptable. And even if you have an idea, if you can kind of flush that, the detail knowledge of the Navy, flush that and say, all right, I have this general knowledge that, this is how a pump works. This is how a valve works, and I can take it apart, put it together. I can read a manual and understand what a technical manual says. I can follow a procedure just fine. And you can also offer to do things with stuff like that. Like, if they say, oh, this procedure's busted, and you're like, well, I can write a procedure, and you can pick up stuff like that, and that can help with advancement. And yeah, it's I think it sounds like a great opportunity, and I think it's very promising that he immediately called your recruiter and is like, I want this guy on site.
Yeah, so he was telling me that they're hiring 3 positions right now because they just built like a 19,000 square foot facility.
So not giant, but big.
Big.
Yeah.
It's specifically for clean room for medical molding, making medical equipment.
That'll be interesting. There'll be some interesting QA requirements.
Yeah. Well, so he liked my QA background. He liked my mechanical background. He liked the fact that I wrote procedures in the Navy because I was a QA planner. So there is. He didn't say anything about not liking anything on me to myself or the recruiter. So all positive things. And he also had said that they've had trouble getting people who actually understand mechanical systems and troubleshooting and stuff. And I was like, well, I used to train mechanics in the Navy. Yeah. Just try to sell that extra, like, I can train people.
Yeah, there you go. Well, and also, like, if you get in, if you get there and you like it and you're doing it for a while, like, you kind of have a steady supply of people that you might know that might be interested in something like that. So
right, exactly. The possibilities are ever ending. So never ending, I should say. But yeah, so I mean, that's one piece of solid news that's happened to me this week where it felt real good. My college courses are going pretty good, but I'm taking English 101 right now, although it's not English 101. I've done more research in English 101 than I think in any other course I've ever taken in my entire life. So,
man, some of those courses, like, it's very dependent on who your professor is, and I've had one before. It was an ethics course, but it was so like the way that the professor graded was so like politically motivated. It was kind of annoying. Like, I figured it out pretty quickly, and I just played to the person's slant, and I got good grades because of it. But I was annoyed by it because I was just like, this is all opinion based. This is just your political opinions that we're testing. You're testing us on. Like,
yeah.
And I was annoyed by it, but I did it, and I got a good grade in the class.
Right. So I don't mind this course. So they grade on a 0 to 3 scale, and they don't give decimals. So it's either a 0, 1, 2, or 3. That's it. And so I've gotten all 3s. So I have an A+ in the course right now. I did get a 2 at one point. And I looked at the annotations, and they give us the grading rubric. They grade everything against. And so I looked at the grading rubric. I looked at my paper and what he annotated on it, and I was like, I don't understand why I got a 2. So I sent him an email. Like, I wasn't even trying to get my grade changed. I just sent him an email, and I was like, hey, just because it was a draft, and so I wanted to make sure I understood why I got a 2, so I could fix it for the final draft.
Yeah.
And so I sent it back, an email to him, and I was like, hey, this is what you sent me. Here's your grading rubric. Can you just help me understand why I got a 2 so I can fix it for the final?
Yeah.
And he didn't really tell me anything, but he upgraded my grade from a 2 to a 3. And I was like, did you just guess on my grade? Or was there an actual reason that I got a 2? I don't understand.
Nice.
I was very confused on that one. So, but hey, I have a 4.0 or 3 out of 3. I don't know. Whatever you want to call it now.
Yeah.
So, whatever. I don't know. I have like 5 things left to turn in for that course, and it's over. It's only a 6.5 week course. It's supposed to be an 8-week course. They put into 6.5 weeks, so it's been very fast paced. So.
Yeah, condensed courses like that are hard. I've done a few of them, and I never thought they were going to be that difficult when I took them, and then every time it was that extra that loss of 2 weeks of work makes it hard.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't even been super difficult. I would say it's just very time consuming. I mentioned to you before we started recording, I was up to 2:30 last night because it's all my I'm going to ASU online, so all my stuff is due Arizona time.
Yeah.
So it was due midnight last night Arizona, which is 3 a.m. here, and so
Yeah.
I was like typing until 2:30 last night trying to get a draft in on time. Because we literally just started this project and the first draft was already due. We started Monday and it was due yesterday.
Yes.
It's
not like you haven't been busy.
Yeah, and it was it's 1,000 pages, and they want they're very big on multimodality and like using like media images, and the whole project was performing a rhetorical analysis on a public figure basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did it on Elon Musk, and so I had to go through his Twitter last night. I probably went through 1,000 tweets. I don't know, but I'm done. Any respect I had for Elon Musk is gone now. It's because I had to read all those tweets.
Twitter will do that. Twitter is a terrible way to communicate.
Yeah, and that was kind of my thesis, if you will, is that Elon Musk's Twitter undermines his professional goals and his credibility. Yeah. So, whatever.
Fun times.
Yeah, but so how are things going over there? I mean, how are things going?
It's
your plan.
Yeah. I'm still, working from home because of the COVID thing. It sounds like we're going back to the office in August. We did go camping last week. That was the first time we've been camping in a long time. And we picked up a pop-up camper, pretty cheap. And we've been, we got to use that for the first time. That was great for the kids. They got to see what camping was like. And it was an adventure. It was, some good, some bad, but
camping.
Yeah. It's not tent camping. That's what I grew up tent camping.
Yeah.
But
most of us did.
Yeah. But it's kind of a compromise. It's nice to be up off the ground. I will say that.
Right. Yeah. No. I mean, my bad back would probably love a camper.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the pop-ups because I feel like it's like a good compromise because I feel like I'm still camping, but I'm up off the ground.
It's not a multi-$1,000 RV with like the nice queen-size mattress and
yeah.
Well,
yeah, and it doesn't have like it doesn't have like walls. Like it's not a rolling house. You don't have like walls and an air conditioner and stuff like that.
Right.
And but you have a place to go where you can get out of the bugs and stuff like that if you're getting eaten up. And
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean that's probably the only way I would ever get my wife to go camping is if I had a camper. There's no way she would go tent camping. Not a chance.
Yeah.
Not a chance.
Well, and I've been out when I was younger. My aunt and uncle had an actual RV, a travel trailer, and I'd go with them once in a while. And it's different, but it was still fun. You still got to do some of the camping stuff. And I was young, so I didn't really care about the creature comforts and stuff. Like I knew I was sleeping on a comfortable bed and stuff, but it didn't really register to me that it was, a thing. Like I didn't appreciate it. But I could see why some people would want a travel trailer, but I just kind of like the pop-up right now. And that's
hey man, whatever you like, because that's all that really matters, right?
Yeah. Well, we got to do that. So like I said, it was an adventure. There was some good and some bad. Definitely learned a lot of things about how my kids do things for like camping. It was interesting to see them like in their new environment. My son got stung by a bee, so that was fun. That was interesting. It's the first time he's ever gotten stung, so it was a little
bee or a wasp.
Bee, honeybee.
Really?
Yep.
He must have like grabbed it or sat on it or.
So they were in a trash can, and I think he like looked into the trash can, and one of them got him. I don't know if he like touched it. He got stung right on the side of the face. So I don't know if he like touched it once it landed on his face and it stung him or what. But
weird.
But it was a bee. I went and looked. Definitely, the trash can was full of bees. So something sweet in there. But
there might have been some honey because they'll reclaim honey from anywhere.
Yeah.
I've seen that.
Yeah, there was a good swarm of them there. Not like a true swarm, but that trash can was full of them. I wouldn't have stuck my head in there.
Yeah, no, they're getting all the honey. There's probably honey in there.
Yeah, but yes, that was an adventure. I was a little nervous because he'd never been stung before, and I didn't know how he was going to react. But
yeah, you don't know if you're allergic.
Yeah, but we gave him some Benadryl right away, and I keep a med kit with me pretty much at all times. So I had Benadryl, I had some like an after sting wipes thing you get in those like hiking med kits, and I
Yeah.
wiped it down with that, and he was good. It welted up a little bit. By the next day, it was gone. He handled it like a champ, and he wasn't afraid after it or anything like that. He's never liked like bugs and bees that much, but he wasn't like terrified of it or anything. Which that made me happy that he wasn't like scared off of the whole camping thing because he got stung by a bee right away.
Well, I'll tell you what, when I get my hives set up, when I finally get some hives in my own backyard, you guys can come out.
Yeah,
and we'll put him in a bee suit and we'll let him handle some bees.
Yeah, he would love that. I bet that'd be a cool get over your fear thing.
I mean, that's what I had to do. Like I was still when I first went to open up a beehive for the first time as an adult, mm-hmm. I was still afraid of bees. I was like, they're gonna sting me. And the beekeeper I was working with, he's like, dude, I've been stung like 6 times this year, and I've done way worse than what you're about to do. Like they barely ever sting you. And I was like, oh, okay. And he was right. I've only been stung once still, and I've handled quite a bit of bees since then.
So. Yeah, I got the most of the times that I've been stung, it's been by a wasp, and those suckers are mean.
That's because they're jerks.
Yeah, but and I've been stung a whole bunch of times. But it was interesting to see how he handled that because I like obviously mental health stuff. I like analyzing. Like I watch how he deals with stuff like that sometimes, and like how he manages the stress and how he like works through it. And it was interesting to see how he did it because he was initially very afraid because he just got stung, and then he seemed to work through it pretty well. And he went back over to the same playground. He went over to the same trash can and looked at it, and I was like, yeah. And I let him do it. I just sat there and watched. I didn't want to like push him to do it or anything. I just watched him, and it was like that was kind of cool to watch him like work through his fear and like go over there and look at where he got stung and look at the trash can and figure it out.
Yeah, I mean. I've noticed that a lot with my own kids is that, like, as long as we as adults and parents don't push the fear on them, they don't generally have fear about things necessarily unless they've been taught to fear something.
Yeah.
So if we don't freak out about it, like, oh no, don't go back near that trash can.
Yeah.
They'll eventually walk over there and check out the trash can again. So
yeah, and all I told him was like, just be careful when you're walking around those things because if you see bugs flying around them, there might be bees there because if there's something sweet there, they want it. Yeah. And he found out later the same thing. So we had strawberries in our cooler, and he pulled out the strawberries, and immediately we had like 2 bees buzzing around where we were at. And I was like, you see, like we got something sweet out, and now there's bees. So if you're going to have a strawberry, take one out, put it back in the cooler, eat the one you got, and then that's it. Because if you leave the strawberry sitting out, within 5 minutes, you'll have a bee here. Like, I don't know how it's crazy how accurate they are, but literally 5 minutes on the table and you'll have a bee there.
Yeah.
But that was fun. Other than that, like I said, I've been working. My family's actually going to be going to Texas for a while. So I'm going to be here by myself for a while, like till September probably.
Oh, wow.
So they're going to go visit Mimi and Papa and
party.
So that'll be, well, I'm going to try to use the time to work on myself. And that's going to be when I'm going to, I'm going to do a lot of working out, a lot of eating clean, and a lot of work, like projects that I haven't been able to work on because I've been busy with other things and just working on me. So I think it'll be good. And, we'll see how the kids do down there at the grandparents. Hopefully they have a good time. I think they have a few things lined up for them. I think they're going to go camping. The grandparents have a big travel trailer. I think they're going to go camping in that. And I think they're going to go fishing and do some other stuff. So.
Okay. Sounds like fun. I mean, it should be good for both you, like you, your wife, and your kids, really, because it will give them some time to do something different, get out of the house. Because, I mean, for the most part, your wife and your kids have been inside almost exclusively, besides maybe some walks and camping you guys did, right?
Yeah, we've done very few things. We've gone to a couple playgrounds. Like since COVID, I think we've been to the playground like 3 times. So like in 3 months, we've been there like 3 times, and mostly in the last month or so because things started to die down.
Right.
And other than that, we haven't done anything. We would go out and do like. We had some friends that, trusted friends that come over. We have a play set in our backyard and they'll play there just because we're trying to get them some socialization and like,
right.
Cause you could tell they get like super stir crazy after a few days. Like they just need something. They need to go do something. and that's hard because it's the whole COVID thing makes it hard.
Yeah, if my wife's parents didn't have a pool, I don't know what we'd be doing right now. Like the kids, that's what they are right now. I'm here by myself right now, recording, and then I'm going to head over to my wife's parents' house. They live right down the road from us.
Yeah,
And, they're swimming right now though. Like,
nice.
I don't know what we would do without that pool because they go crazy if we haven't done something in like a day. Like, they just start bouncing off the walls. They go crazy. So I definitely understand that.
Yeah, they definitely. Our kids spend a lot of time in the backyard, and that helps. But our backyard's pretty small, and we have a play set, but there's only so much space. So they go out there and they climb up and down the play set and swing for a while. They play with the dog, and then they're
swing and slide are only so much fun.
Yeah.
Like, how many times you go down that slide before it becomes boring?
Yeah, they're both starting to climb. It has a climbing side and monkey bars, and they're both starting to test that, and that's interesting to watch with my 3-year-old daughter. She's fearless too. She'll get all the way up to the top of it and just hang out. I watched her at the campground. There was a probably 7 to 8 foot tall ladder. They went up to the top of one of these obstacles, and they had climbing, like rock climbing, like the handles on it.
Yeah.
But it also, you could just grab the boards that they were on. And she was just grabbing the boards. But she climbed. I watched her. I stood there and watched, and I was like, I wonder if she's going to try the whole thing. And she started climbing, and she made it all the way to the top. 3-year-old, all the way to the top, like an 8 foot ladder. I was like, fearless. This is a monster. And she got up there, and then she looked back down, and she clapped for herself, and then turned around and walked down.
And then did she realize she couldn't get down, or did she get down?
So there's a slide on the other end of it. So she went down, went through the thing, and went down the slide. And
okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
yeah, because I know all of my kids up until when they were like maybe 5, always like they climb up things, but then they realize they're up there.
Yeah,
how do I get down?
Yeah. Well, you got to climb back down. It's a funny story. Order of operations here. But.
So we did talk to Josh last week, but we didn't really touch on some of the recent events that have happened around the Navy, the United States. I think the first one, I think it would be good for us to touch on, being Navy people, would be what happened with the Bonhomme Richard. That was a crazy fire. For those of you who are listening or watching, because we're going to put this on YouTube. If you're listening, I'm going to launch a YouTube channel this week. We'll figure out what that link will be once I finally figure it out. But the Bonhomme Richard thing, I got some information from someone who I felt was pretty reliable. I still don't know the source of the fire. I don't know if they've finished any investigations yet. But Bonhomme Richard is the LHD stationed out of San Diego, and if you missed any of it, it caught fire, and there's probably a good chance that thing will never go back to sea as a ship ever again.
Yeah, I've seen some pictures, and she's hurt pretty bad. I read a Navy Times article, I think it's Navy Times, that said that I think she has 16 decks, I think they said, and they said like 14 of them are damaged, or it might be 17 decks.
I know you've probably seen the same pictures I've seen.
It's bad. They said that same article said this pretty much the superstructure is gutted. Like there's nothing left in the superstructure. They said.
Right. The forward mast even collapsed, or the aft mast. One of the masts collapsed in on itself. Did you? You went through boot camp with the newer battle stations, right? The one.
Nope.
You did the one where you run around the.
Oh
the
yeah. Oh
really?
Yeah.
We weren't that far apart though.
It was right. We were right on the line. We were like one of the last classes to do old school. So we ran that 8 miles or whatever it is.
I didn't realize that was that new when I went through.
Yeah, it was very, very new. Like it was, because you were like only a year or so after me.
Yeah. When did you go to boot camp?
2006.
Really? Okay. At like end of 2006.
Yeah, so in September 2006.
So 2 years. I went to this boot camp 2 years after you.
Yeah.
So I was gonna say there's a part of battle stations, at boot camp is the fire damaged compartment. Like, and you have to, because your ship, because they put you on like a fake ship. It's like a fake destroyer, and you take battle damage, and you have to crawl through like there's like smoke. There's like a smoke machine. You gotta go through like battle damage and like save these actual dummies, like full size, full weight dummies, and drag them out of like a damaged compartment and stuff. And I was looking at the pictures and I was like, damn, Battle Station's pretty accurate.
Yeah, they say the new one is pretty realistic, and the old one, I mean, we had something similar to that, but it was basically like, have you ever seen pictures of the inside of like a shoot house where they have, so you have like
the walls,
just plywood walls,
yeah,
and then you have walkways up on top where the instructors are walking above everyone and watching.
Yeah,
that was basically how that was set up. It was kind of just like a maze, so it didn't look anything like a ship, but you had to search through debris and stuff like that, and there was different places where you'd walk around the corner, you'd find a fire flag, and you can't go that way, so you go back. And you're searching for certain things where there'd be a smoke simulation where you'd have to get down and crawl into the smoke, and you end up having to drag a dummy out and stuff like that. Or they'll even like your shipmates, they'd be like, "Oh, you're injured," like they point you, your leg is hurt, and then you have to carry your buddy out. And
no, this was like you had so we were in like so the ship got hit or whatever, and then you were in like a ammo storage compartment, and we had to move the ammo out of the damaged compartment. And then, but it was flooding, and so we had to put like a patch on everything, but then we had to climb up an escape scuttle, and that went into a damaged compartment. And while we were going through there, it's like filled with smoke. Like I couldn't see, this far in front of me, and you're trying to go through, and you hear like the dummies make noises. It's just you hear. He's like, "Oh, there's someone down over there."
That's crazy.
Yeah. And so we had to like throw them on a stretcher and like pull them out, and there's like the walls are caved in and crap. It's pretty accurate.
That's crazy. Yeah, ours is nothing like that, but they did the best they could to simulate it, and it was different in that, from what I understand, talking to people that have done it. Mine was just a little more running. There was more running all over the base.
Yeah.
Because I think it was like 8 miles or so that you end up running, and it was a rough night for me because I for whatever reason, I think it's because my last name has an S, so I was at like the end of the name calling. I think they just did it by name, and so my group, you're supposed to be in a group of 6, I think it was, and we only had a group of 4. So my group of 4 had 2 people added to our group that were rollbacks, and they were having a hard time. And the 2 rollbacks, they just weren't that strong, and they're like, we had to carry 4 sea bags, and they're loaded, they're heavy. So the whole thing is you have 6 people, so you can split it. So if you have somebody that's struggling, you can move the sea bag between people and kind of strategize. Well, those 2 couldn't make it like more than about 100 yards with a bag. So I just volunteered. I was like, I'll buck up and I'll just keep a bag. And I kept it all night, and it was a rough night. It was a long night. But anyways, mine probably wasn't as realistic, but the Bonhomme Richard, I've seen pictures, and it's scary. And I know, I don't want to say who, because I don't know if they want me to talk about their stuff.
Right.
But I've talked to people that have said that they had pretty bad PTSD seeing that, and like had nightmares and stuff, because like they weren't there when it happened, but they saw that, and they remembered like, all the training they went through in the military and stuff like that. And they started thinking about like, that could have been me. That could have been us dealing with that. And I don't think I had like a PTSD reaction to it, but I definitely had like some nostalgia, like thinking about like, man, all that training that we did, like, we joked about it, and, talked about how it sucked and this is dumb or stuff like, and I look at it and you're like, wow, that's, there you go. That was all the training put. And I kind of felt proud, because I know, at least on my watch team, when I was running it, I felt like we were very prepared, because I did a lot of extra things that were not taught to me by anyone in training or anything like that. It was just Nolan. I can't remember his first name. I don't know, was Nolan there when you first got there? MM1 Nolan?
The name sounds familiar. I don't know if I know him by people talking about him or know him.
I can't remember his first name, but he was a pretty big mentor to me when I was coming up as a CMO, because I did a lot of UIs with him. And one thing that he put on me, he said, he asked me each hose, and he's like, how long is that hose? And I tell him, because he had to memorize that. And he's like, so where will it reach? And that was a question I'd never really been asked.
Yeah.
Like, so where will it reach? And I was like, I don't know. He's like, why don't you go find out? So he had me make sure to unroll every hose and lock it around to see what you can and what you cannot reach with this hose, and what obstacles do you have, where can you get entangled, and just so you know what you have. So I took that, and when I was a CMO on the watch team, I had each watchstander on their watch station. I want you to unroll the hoses on your watch station and show me where you can reach with them, and basically do a practical on where can you take these hoses. And I would refresh that probably on a deployment. I'd probably have them do it at least 3 times. And then when I got a new watchstander, I expected them to do that right away, to like show me that where you can take this, because this is something that's going to save your life if we ever need to use it. So, and I looked at that and I was like, I'm glad that I did that kind of thing and that I took the time to do it, because I wasn't forced to by anybody. And I kind of felt a sense of pride that I took responsibility and did that. And
two things. There's 2 parts to that. One, two things I want to say. I don't think a lot of people take damage control very seriously. I was a locker LPO my last sea tour, and so I was in charge of Repair Locker 5. And we ran too many GQ drills, and it gets repetitive and it gets ridiculous. And I felt comfortable with all my support teams. I felt like my team leaders could do their jobs, so I wasn't concerned. But there was people that within those teams in general that I don't know that really could do their job. And I don't know that I was a very good locker LPO because I didn't want it. It wasn't something that I wanted to do. It was something that got thrust upon me because I was a first class. But in the plant, in the ship, like, you need to know where the DC equipment is, what it can do, how to use it. If you don't know that stuff, you're not only failing yourself, you're failing everyone else if something does go down. But back to the PTSD thing, I actually had a nightmare like 6 nights ago. I was asleep, and my wife said that I started saying something about fire hoses in my sleep, and then I started breathing really heavy, and I woke up just like ready to fight a fire, like.
Yeah.
And she, so I know that because just thinking and seeing all those pictures and thinking about the scenario, it definitely brought back, because 2018 deployment specifically, I had a reoccurring nightmare because we had literally, you go up to the hangar bay, look out hangar bay 3, and there's 2 Russian ships 100, 200 feet off our starboard side, and the whole time I'm like, if anything ever pops off, it's gonna get heavy quick. And so I had this recurring nightmare that people were going to die, and it was almost like this burden of leadership type thing, where I was like, well, these are my people. And so, like, seeing the Bonhomme Richard with all that damage and all the fire and everything else, it, like you said, it made me thankful it never happened, but also it brought back memories of that nightmare that I was having in 2018. So, I'm looking forward to seeing what happened there and why it happened. It seems really odd. So
yeah, and so in case people haven't read through it, and I'll kind of give the Cliff Notes version. So the Bonhomme Richard, in the morning time, I can't remember which day it was. It was a Sunday. So
Sunday at like 8.
At like 8 a.m. So people that don't know how a Navy ship runs, on Saturday and Sunday, they're usually what you would call duty section only. So you only have one like section of people from the ship. So the ship is divided into duty sections. Like for aircraft carrier, for my department on the aircraft carrier, it's 4 different sections normally. So you have about a quarter of the people on the ship that you would normally have in that department. For the whole ship, I think they're usually on like 8 section or something
8 or
like that.
10, depending on the carrier and how many people they have.
You think about that. Like for some departments, you have a quarter of the people, and other ones you have only like an 1/8 of the people. So you have very few. I think that in this case, I think they said there were like 300 or 400 people on the ships, like 300 or something like that, out of the 1,000 or so that they normally have. So they had like, somewhere around less than a third of the people that they would have when they were deployed. And they're in what you would call a maintenance availability. So what that means is they're doing a lot of heavy maintenance that basically the ship is not ready to go underway anymore. They're breaking apart big systems and doing work. So if you think about what has to happen for that, you have to have building materials, you have to have scaffolding, you have to have all kinds of chemicals and rags and equipment, all kinds of stuff that will burn. And you also have fire boundaries on the ship, like where you would shut doors to isolate a fire. Well, during availability, you have airlines and electrical cabling and all manners of things, hoses from pumps. You have all these things running through hatches, fouling the hatches. So they do make strategic locations where you can cut the lines basically and shut the doors, but that takes time. And if you can't get to it because you're smoked out, then what do you do? And
Right.
it's, there's your ability to fight a fire in that situation is severely diminished. It is a much more of a risk.
Right.
And it sounds like this fire was in the lower vehicle bay is where it started, and we don't know how it started yet. But they also said that due to the design of the ship, because it basically funnels down to the stern of the ship, the stern being the back of the ship for the non-Navy types, and there's a stern opening because this is an amphibious ship. They put amphibious vehicles in that vehicle bay, and the vehicles leave through that stern exit. Well, if you think about that, it's basically a wind tunnel. Like they say the design of the ship, because of where the fire was, basically created a wind tunnel effect, and it fed the fire very quickly, and that caused it to spread much faster. And then, like you said, that combined with that there is a lot of combustible material on board, and they had, I think they said 3 separate explosions early on in the fire that caused the fire to spread even more because it actually damaged things to where it could spread. One of them being, they said it was big enough explosion that it was heard or felt. I can't remember what the term is, like 13 miles away that it was felt or heard. So one of them was a big boom, big explosion. I don't know what it was, but
I heard it was, and I mean, this is all hearsay at this point, but I heard it was one of the tractors in the hangar bay portion of the ship.
Yeah.
For moving the airplanes.
Yeah. And I heard from some people that, one of the reasons they had to back off on firefighting is because they had, like drums, 55-gallon drums cooking off. They had SCBAs cooking off because there's SCBA lockers, and also some small arms because it is a marine vessel. So they do have some small arms on board. You had small arms cooking off. And by cooking off, what that means is when something that's not necessarily flammable gets hot enough, sometimes it can explode. Like if you have a tank of air, it's not necessarily flammable, but it is an accelerant. You're adding air to a fire. So if it gets hot enough, it explodes, it's going to feed the fire.
Well, right. And compressed air, right, it's already pressurized and you add heat to it. Anytime you add heat to anything, it pressurizes even more. And those SCBA bottles can only handle so much pressure. They're already at like 4,000 pounds.
Yeah, and they're big.
Heating these things for 300-400 degrees.
Yeah, and they're decent size and they're heavy and
they're fiberglass, so they're gonna deform real fast too. So they're gonna lose their structural integrity.
Yeah.
So
and when those things blows, like it could become a missile. It's going to add more air to the fire. It's just not a good situation. And small arms, ammunition, you get ammunition hot enough, it'll cook off, is what called. It'll go off on its own once it's hot enough. That's a problem that they have with machine gunners, actually, for actual infantry and stuff like that. If you get the barrel hot enough, you can cook off rounds and it can fire on its own. It's crazy to think about that. Like they had explosions, they had all these things happening. And, they ended up having to abandon the ship. They had to get off and fight it from the outside because it just wasn't safe. And those videos of it when it was at its full force, the whole ship is just engulfed in smoke.
Right. And they just had like the vessels on the outside just trying to cool off the hull.
The harbor police are the ones really fighting it. And they had ended up, later on they had helicopters from HSC-3 dropping water on it. I do want to say something that's I thought was really awesome about this whole thing, like kind of, again, pride building for the Navy. And so you had all the commands across that waterfront responded, many of them without orders. They had no orders to do that. And they voluntarily made their way to the Bonhomme Richard to help fight the fire and to help take care of that ship. And there's a picture I saw of sailors from the USS Decatur, which is a destroyer, or I think a frigate, and
I think it's
small boat. It's a small boat
destroyer,
and they're lined up 2 columns, and they're marching their way over to the ship, and the pictures taken of them with the burning Bonhomme Richard in the background. And I was like, man, that's hits you right in the chest, and good on them. And, the admiral, I can't remember the admiral's name that's been doing the press conferences, but he talked about that, Bonhomme Richard sailors led every single fire team. It was their ship. They led them on there. They took responsibility for the people that were going in. and they fought their ship, and they did, an amazing job. And that's, something that they can be proud of. I don't think that they saved her. I think she's probably going to be razor blades, but it's, you did that much damage. I don't see how they can justify fixing her, but I don't know. I'm not the one that makes that decision. So
right. So real quick though, because you just actually reminded me of something. It's talking about leading the fire teams. You're no stranger to this. We make fun of damage control men all the time, because if there's no casualties, they're almost worthless. They're almost worthless. I love my DC men. Okay, but
they're basically doing maintenance on DC equipment and chilling.
Right. Well, that being said, I did read one story. I think you might have read it too.
Yeah, I think it's a DC3.
DC2 Garvin.
DC2 Garvin. Yeah.
Yeah.
That monster.
I just had to look it up because I forgot his name. That's what I was doing just now. I was typing that up. So this guy, I don't know the exact. I'll probably misquote this a little bit because I'm not going to read it because I'm not sure where to find it. I just got his name real quick. But so he was he was on duty, I think, that day, and so he was there initially. He got during the first explosion, he had gotten knocked off his feet and had to go through concussion protocol, and then he came back, started leading another team, and then he was there for either the third or second explosion, and then had to go through concussion protocol again, and then came back a third time, but they wouldn't let him lead teams, but he was still there the whole time, helping coordinate the firefight, because I think he was the fire marshal on duty when this all went down. And I don't. There's a lot about the Navy I don't like. I don't like about the Navy. But it's awesome, and I take pride in the fact that I see people like that who I served with, and to know that, if I was ever on a ship that had a pretty big casualty like this, I think there's a number of people that would stand up and do things like DC2 Garvin did to try to save the ship. We had some things happen, like we had that couple incidents that happened here or there while we were both there. I'm not going to talk because I don't know what we're allowed to talk about, so I'm not going to talk about it. But I'm not sure what I'm allowed to say really on that, so I'm not going to say anything. But we had a couple incidents, and I remember one in particular where all the lights went out, and
I remember that.
Yeah. And I was shocked on how well and how quickly we did everything when that happened, because I was like,
yeah, we definitely did not balk at game time, and it was game time at that one. It was the real deal. And I remember that specific event, and again, I'm not going to give away what it was or what happened, but I remember I had just gotten off watch, and I was walking down to the berthing, and I heard one announcement for a casualty. I zipped up my coveralls to walk up, and then I stepped, my foot hit the first rung of the ladder lead berthing, and all the lights went out, and I was like, oh no, what is going on?
And all of us knew what happened before they even made that announcement, because we knew the status of everything that was going on. Mm-hmm. But I remember I was in the galley eating, I think it was lunch. All of us like, God, one of the first ones were like, "Are you serious? What's going on?" And then the lights went out. Like oh no!
Yeah, I will say I was very impressed with how the reactor officer of the ship handled that situation. Though he didn't, I thought that could have gone one of two ways. He handled it very well.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Stuff like that, like test your training, and it kind of, it kind of, you don't want bad things to happen, but it's also kind of validating to be tested in that manner and to kind of pass the test.
Right.
I had one other situation. I will talk about this one because this doesn't have anything to do with that other subject. This is just a DC thing.
Right.
Were you there for the fourth deck flooding that we had in the number 2 plant?
No, I think that happened shortly before I got there. I think
so.
Because that was before the shipyard period, right? That you guys did.
Yeah, I think it was before that.
Yeah.
But so we had a pretty bad flooding thing. I'm the one that found it. I stepped right in it. That's how I found it. And without giving away too much of what's around the area, there's a lot of electrical equipment in the area. And when I stepped in that was one of the few times in my career that I kind of thought I might die. Like I thought that was like, this might be it. Like at any moment here, I could get electrocuted and just be game over because I'm standing in 2 inches of water and it's all in all these this electrical equipment. And one of this piece of equipment is very high voltage. And if it sparks off, I'm done. There's no way. And so I handled that, I think, very well. And I was very proud of myself that I did. But like reflecting on it afterwards, I was like, wow, that was kind of heavy. That could have been real bad. And, we walked away with one person with a busted up nose from a part of the evolution. And other than that, there was really no injuries.
Right. And, yeah. Casualty is something you never want to see, but you're right. It definitely validates the training for sure. It either validates or proves that you did not train enough very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. It's and like I said, the PTSD part of it, like I don't think I felt any of those effects, but I've had people that have talked to me that have said that they were from the Bonhomme Richard, seeing the pictures and stuff definitely kicked off some PTSD for them. And they're like, because you do think about that, you're like, that could have happened to any ship. Any ship could have a fire like that. And, we think about like, what if they're at sea when that happened? Like, that's the real nightmare. Like,
right. And until we know what caused it and how it spread so fast, I don't know that we'll be able to really analyze that side of it because, as we were talking about before, when you're in that shipyard availability, your fire boundaries are all jacked up. You can't, normally you just be able to shut some hatches and at least isolate, and I don't know that they're, especially with it being in the vehicle, but that's a huge area. I don't know. One
thing they did say in the news, so I can say this, is they did have the halon system was off for maintenance.
There you go.
Which is it's not good. That doesn't help. So halon, for people who don't know, halon is a automatic release fire system. It's nasty stuff, but it basically suffocates the fire.
And any people that are in the space.
And anyone that's in the space quickly, because it basically will get into your lungs and it will sit in your lungs and you can't really get it out.
Yeah, it's heavier than air. So in order to get it out, you got to basically get out of the compartment and then stand on your head is one of the that's like the only way you can do it without like an actual medical procedure. And I don't know if that works, but that's what I was always told.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay. At that point, if you're drowning in your lungs, I would do about anything, just whatever.
Right.
Tell me what I could do to help myself because I'm not doing well. But they had that system turned off because they were doing maintenance on it, which makes sense. It's availability. So, and that that would have hindered them. I think it is definitely kind of an event of our time for the Navy. That's a big event, and it was very. I watched a lot of it. I watched a lot of coverage of that. I read a lot of articles. I was very interested in it.
Yeah, same. And looking at like the national like strategic aspect of it, that's one of I think 7 or 6 LHDs. There's LHAs and stuff, but I think it's like one of 6 LHDs, and that knocks out 20%, 15%.
Well, and I know
of our amphibious capabilities.
I know they were already going on very long deployments, just like carriers were, and now you're down a ship.
Yep.
So it's not good. It doesn't bode well for that fleet as far as the health and comfort of the sailors, because they were already, like, we on one of our deployments relieved the Boxer so they could get a port visit because they'd been out longer than we had.
Yep.
And we'd been out 90 days and they had been out longer than us. So that tells you how rough shape they were in.
Right.
And
we used the carrier to fight pirates off Somalia.
Yeah. We brought on some special people and we did that. That was interesting too. But,
yes, the pirates from Captain Phillips were fought with an aircraft carrier.
But that was an interesting time. And we can talk offline more of that stuff. I don't know what I shouldn't say about that stuff.
Whatever.
But
it's in the past.
It was interesting. But that was interesting. But what we're getting at with that is the LHD, I think boxers in LHD, but they had been underway for a long time, and it's pretty normal for them to be underway for a long time. So when you take a very, arduously deployed ship and then you remove one from the rotation, that doesn't help. And it's not like you can turn one of these things out in a few months to have a replacement. That's, probably 5 to 10 years to replace one. And
yeah, at least. I don't know who builds these. Let's look. I don't even know who builds these things. Is it Huntington? Yeah, it's Ingalls.
They're big enough. It's probably Newport News.
It's down in Mississippi. It's the Ingalls one down in Mississippi.
Gotcha.
But I mean, let's see here. This one. So it takes about 4 years, looks like, from when they lay it down to actually commissioning it. And then after commissioning, you still have workups and everything else.
Yeah, you got about a year of getting it shook down and taking possession from the shipyard.
Yeah, fixing anything that's broken, et cetera, et cetera. So, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of materials. So, I mean, I definitely look forward to seeing the cause. I'm sure we'll follow up on this again some other point in the future. Mm-hmm. But it's definitely a crappy scenario for the Navy in general. And I'm really interested to see if it was like a Firewatch issue, because I know at one point someone said it started from welding. I don't know. So
yeah, I
find out.
I don't know. I hope it's not misconduct, but we'll see.
Right? The Navy doesn't need the black eye after doing like such a good job like combating it in the scenario that they're in.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't think that takes anything away from them, but it's sad to see when something like this, if something like this were to have happened from some type of misconduct, that's sad to see. It sucks, but it doesn't take anything away from them. They did a hell of a job, no matter what.
Right. So the people who fought the fire, it takes nothing away from them, but the Navy as an organization, or potentially the shipyard, I think it was NASCO, so General Dynamics. NASCO, I think, was the one conducting the availability. It harkens back to, what was that, 2012, 13, when the Miami fire happened?
Yeah.
So that was a disgruntled shipyard worker.
Yeah, people don't know about that one. So USS Miami was a fast boat, right? Fast tech sub. So fast tech submarine. And they had a disgruntled shipyard worker, from what I understand, just wanted to go home. Didn't want to work that day.
He wanted to go home.
So he decided to light a fire to basically, if they called away a fire, everybody would have to get off the ship. So all the shipyard workers don't fight the fire, the ship does. Well, he burned up the whole ship, and the ship was basically useless. And I think they decommissioned her, didn't they?
Yep. There was a little while they thought about using it to convert it into a prototype boat.
Yeah. Like San Francisco.
Now it's San Francisco. But they realized that it just wasn't worth it, and they just decommissioned it. So
that one person just his maybe
he's
his
in jail. Health.
Yeah,
he's in jail.
That'll happen. That'll happen when you take on Uncle Sam and burn up one of their submarines.
It did not take them long to figure out who started the fire.
Yeah.
Well, that's where Joe was working.
Ouch. Yeah, that's not. I'm sure that his trial was not fun, and I'm sure he's not having a good time right now.
No.
But that's a rough one. Do you have any other current events you want to talk about right now? I can't.
Not really. I mean, I'm looking forward to see what happens going forward here with COVID and the presidential election coming up. We don't really talk politics on here, but it doesn't mean we won't probably touch on the presidential elections coming up, federal elections at least, because they have national importance, and we're not going to sit here and talk too much about it. But it goes without saying that our country's in a very polarized position right now. Everyone's very the majority of America is very hyper-partisan right now. The country is not very open to discourse, not very open to debate, not very open to being wrong. We as a country going forward, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And, we can only control so much of it individually. So
Well, and you also have stuff going on right now, like the stuff that's going on in Portland, the the
yes,
federal police thing. That's scary to me. Like that's really
yes.
scary. Because you have like basically have federal police officers allegedly just disappearing people, and that's scary stuff. That's scary stuff to think that there's people rolling around in unmarked government vehicles, jumping out and just camouflage, like military camouflage, and snatching up protesters. That's that's some sketchy stuff.
Right. And I'm not there.
Yeah.
And everyone has an agenda these days. At least most people have an agenda these days. And so it's hard to read any news article on that stuff and know really what is true and what isn't true. And are these people good people? Or are these people making threats? Is there terrorist threats involved? But either way, you know, I'm trying to not get political.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of rhetoric around it, and it's anything that I hear in the news, I kind of take with a grain of salt, and I try to corroborate it for as many sources as I can. And you're right, neither of us is there. We're not seeing it happen, but if that is happening, that's spooky to me because
well,
yeah.
So real quick, I'll get slightly political real quick. We're not going to go too deep into it, but in 2012, President Obama signed into law the NDAA. Okay, if you guys don't know what that is, just Google NDAA Obama. Just look it up. Okay, I don't want to say my political affiliation. I'm not a Republican, but I'm not a Democrat. Anyways, when I read that legislation back in 2012, I was worried about it because it basically allows the federal government to detain civilians for an undefined amount of time. There's enough wiggle room. It's meant for federal government to detain foreign nationals on U.S. soil, but because of the way that the language is written, it allows the detention of U.S. citizens too. Basically, there's a loophole in there. And it allows them to basically detain U.S. citizens for an undefined amount of time for undefined reasons. So, if that's how they're detaining people right now, I just want to point out that this was Democratic legislation. It's now being used by the executive branch, who is now currently under the control of the Republican Party. Just saying. Just saying.
Are you saying that they may be two sides of the same coin?
I would never say that out loud.
Yeah.
But, anyways, for anyone who's on the Democratic side yelling at Republicans right now because federal police are detaining citizens for unknown reasons, I'm just saying, NDAA allows that. That was signed by the Democrats, who was pushed through by a Democratic House and a Democratic Senate.
Yeah.
So, I'm just saying, maybe it's both parties' faults.
Yeah. Yeah, politics can get real messy, and you have to kind of get to the bottom of things before you draw a conclusion. And to be honest, if there's anything that could come out of all this, I would hope that we could get away from partisanship and we could look at the specific issues and realize that, like, one election and all the promises that the elected official is making to you, not all of them are going to happen. You're going to have to figure out our government is built to be cumbersome and slow moving for a reason. It's not supposed to be easy to change things. And like, if you're the candidate that you like gets voted in, you shouldn't expect all the things that he promised you to happen or he or she. Right. It should be a few things that they can agree on between everybody that this might be good for the country, and those can get passed. But everything moves very slowly as designed. And I think we're at a point now where nobody's getting closer together. I think everyone's getting farther apart. And that's spooky too, because it's not going to, I don't know how it's going to end. I don't know. We'll see.
I'll tell you what, I am concerned for this election from a personal standpoint, where if either side wins, I don't know what the other side is going to do.
It's not going to go well either way, I don't think.
No, I don't think it is either. And it's one of those things where I'm worried somewhat. I don't want to say, oh my gosh, we're going to break out into a civil war. I don't think we're that far. But with the way that we've seen certain rioting go down in certain cities recently, there is a lot of disgruntled people out there, and a lot of it rightfully so. But some of it is literally just rage, undirected rage for reasons that don't seem logical to me.
Yeah,
and that concerns me.
Well, have we touched on the policing thing at all on this? I don't know if we have.
I think we did a little bit, but not really.
But I don't know if I mentioned like Rogan's podcast with Jocko Willink. I don't know if I mentioned that before. I'll plug it again real quick. But so on Joe Rogan's podcast, if any of you guys listen to that, he had his most recent one with Jocko Willink. They talked about the state of policing in the United States right now. It's right at the beginning of the podcast. It's a great listen. Two people who are very well versed in human combat, talking about how the police are basically being too heavy-handed with the populace, and that's why they've lost trust from the populace. And Jocko compared it to counterinsurgency operations when he was in Iraq, and so it's the same thing. Like if you go into a village in Iraq and you're too heavy-handed, they aren't going to trust you. It's like if you kick down somebody's door and they're harboring a terrorist, and you kill the terrorist, but you also kill one of their family members, those people aren't going to like you. And so, if that happens once, it doesn't really hurt the mission. But if it happens again and again and again, eventually the public doesn't trust you. And he's like, that's kind of where the police are right now. There's been enough things that should not have happened that have happened now publicly, that the public is starting to not trust the police. And the scary part of that is the police are responding by being more heavy-handed.
Right.
And that's the part that just like, it blows my mind that like we're saying you guys are, or not the country is saying that the police are too heavy-handed, and we don't like this because we think that they are being oppressive and hurting our rights. And they're responding to that by being more restrictive and more brutal. And it's crazy. It's very interesting. You would think that they would take that on board and look at it and say, maybe we should take a look at these tactics, and maybe this isn't the route we need to go because it's not working. But it seems like they're trying to fix the problem by amplifying it. And it's interesting.
Yeah. I had said a few weeks ago, I don't think I said it on the podcast, so I think it was just on like my social media timeline or something like that. De-escalation is one of the most important tools you can have if you're in authority position, and that's whether you're a police officer or you're in my case a first class in the Navy.
Yeah, even if you're just somebody's boss,
like being able to take a situation and de-escalate it is one of the more important tools you have in your utility belt when it comes to leadership, because leadership or authoritarian positions, you're always going to come across conflict. You're always going to come across disagreements. And I think it's clear, and I think there's some great police officers. I'm friends with some great police officers. I've made friends with police officers in San Diego when I was stationed down there. I have personal friends who are police officers now that I've known since high school. And I think there are some great police officers out there, but it's one of those situations where a few bad eggs spoils the whole bunch. And I saw one meme, when the whole George Floyd thing started, everyone's like, this is just one bad cop, but there's 3 other cops on the scene not stopping the one bad cop. So you don't have one bad cop. You have 4 bad cops.
Well, and what Jocko alludes to on that podcast is it's a training issue. Yeah. And the way he puts it, I think, is the more eloquent way of saying it. He said, he points out, as a SEAL platoon, Jocko Willink was the task unit commander of Task Unit Bruiser. Big, very famous unit for their actions in Iraq during the surge, and the height of the Iraq war, Ramadi, all that stuff. Chris Kyle was in that unit. A lot of names that you would know if you are familiar with the SEAL teams and stuff. But so he talked about that when they go on a deployment, they go on a 6-month deployment. They train for that deployment for 18 months for a 6-month deployment. And he's like,
Yep.
and these police, like they get what, 7 weeks, 8 weeks at the police academy, and then you're putting them out on the street. And he was, he had some statistics of like their continuing training. He's like, it's laughable. It's not enough. And
Right.
he said, I think they get 4 hours of combatives training a year. He's like, so if you're only doing 4 hours of combatives training a year, he's like, how are you going to behave when someone puts hands on you? He's like, he's like, you're not going to be used to it. He's like, I think the way he says, like, I think they should train 20% of the time. I think 20% of the time they should be training. And he said, he's like, I think it'd be ideal if every police officer was a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. He's like, because then you know what it's like for someone to put hands on you, and you're not going to freak out if somebody does. And that's, because he's like, I spent my entire career teaching people to detach and not get emotional in very, very stressful situations. And he's like, that's what I see happening in a lot of these situations is they're getting emotional and they're not making good decisions. It's not that they're terrible, awful, mean people. They're just getting emotional and they're not making good decisions.
Right. I mean, it's just like us in the propulsion plant, where you hammer in drill after drill after drill after drill after drill. If you run through those stressful scenarios, if you run through them over and over again in a training setting, when it comes time for the real deal, like we had that one time,
mm-hmm.
The stress part of it is almost not even existent. You're not stressing out. You're recalling that muscle memory, going back to the training you received, and employing the tactics and the skills that you got there to combat whatever casualty or whatever situation you're facing. And I think Jocko's right. Like you can't have people allowing their emotions to cloud their actions, and that is what's happening.
Yeah,
and whether it's because they've had bad interactions with other people or they've had a bad day, it doesn't matter. The way that they're acting is just not. It's not successful in helping them to be a police officer.
Well, and he talks about that a little bit too, like the whole like interactions thing. He said, there's maybe one of those 3 cops, had a fight with his wife this morning or something like that. He's somehow his mental state is a little bit altered and he's a little agitated. And he's like, that happens. That's the human element of everything. It's like, even if he's highly trained, like if he's having a terrible day or a terrible week or whatever, he might not have the patience to deal with it or, the mental wherewithal to deal with it. But if all 3 of those officers have all of that training or are trained up that well, they should be able to see him getting too handsy or getting going over the top and just pull him off sides like, hey man, I got this, go cool down for a little bit. And that's all that's the end of it.
Right. That's it. It's over. Yeah.
But that he's like, that's not what happens. Like, like the George Floyd thing, like he pointed that out. It's like, you see this guy just sitting on this dude's neck, like one of those other cops could have been like, hey man, I got this, get him off of him and not get back on his neck and just hold him there, because he's cuffed, he's restrained. I'm not an expert on police tactics or anything, but those two are, I would say they're experts in human combat, and like they definitely know how to handle someone in a hands-on fashion and control them.
Yes.
And, and he made the point too, like, they're talking about banning chokeholds completely in policing. He's like, how do you control someone if you can't choke them? That's what he was saying. He's like, you have to hit him in the head with a baton, basically.
Yeah. Then you're going to be causing brain damage. Yeah. No, you have to. Anyone who knows anything about martial arts will tell you you're going to have some form of grappling to control someone. And the best form of grappling to control someone is a choke.
Yeah.
It's just knowing how to use a choke effectively and safely. It's kind of like, I don't know if it's as good of so I was a lifeguard once. And one thing that they train you to do, right, if you're going to save someone who's drowning and they come and you end up in a face-to-face scenario with them, right, they're in a fight or flight. They're gonna try to push you under. You know what you do? You put yourself under because they're trying to not drown. Mm-hmm. So you submerge yourself because you could try doing something else. You could panic with them, and now you got 2 issues. Or you just calmly put yourself under the water, reposition yourself behind them, and then now you can do a safe recovery.
There you go.
But it's it's kind of a similar scenario. Like, you have to be able to get your hands on someone in order to control them. You can't have a scenario where you're letting someone who's potentially violent, potentially harm to themselves and others, be able to do whatever they want. And tasers are not always effective. I am a big proponent of tasers. There are videos. Go to YouTube. There are people who are just like it doesn't affect them that much.
Well, and even with that, like you have to get they have to hit right. You have to get all the barbs in, and they say they're only effective. Like I think they said like 60. That might even be like less than 50% of the time.
Right.
It has to be like if they're wearing loose clothing. There's lots of factors that go into that. It doesn't always work. So you can't rely on those tools. You have to have some hands-on skills. And
exactly.
And like I'm not saying the cops should go hands-on with every person they see, but when they have to, like, this person,
they need to be able to do it safely.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way Jocko says it, he's like, if you know how to correctly apply a choke, like you can put somebody to sleep in about 3 seconds. And they go to sleep, they wake up with cuffs on, game over. That's
I'm not saying I've ever done that in the plant. But I've done it in the plant.
I remember, I'll drop a name here. I remember one time I got into a wrestling match with Brett Casto.
Oh, gosh.
And I tried to triangle him. He swept me onto the ground, and I tried to triangle choke him. Like he was in my guard, and I tried to triangle choke him. And I didn't grab his leg or anything like that so that he couldn't posture up. And he stood up, and he slammed me so hard on that diamond deck. And I just let go and just rolled over to my side. And I was like, I'm done. I tap. I quit.
You win.
I don't want any more. He just slammed me on the diamond deck. It hurt so bad.
Yeah, I won't use the name because I don't want them to be embarrassed. But someone, I was the LPO too, so not exactly great leadership here, but funny story. Good funny story before we close out here. So we had just had morning quarters down at the plant, and this guy was kind of joking, I think, and he's like, "Kaggy, you're just a big old bitch," and I was like, "Excuse me?
Really?
Excuse me? What'd you say to me?" And he said it again. I was like, "All right, okay," and I just rolled up on him. I was like,
choked him out,
and he started tapping. I was like, "Oh no. You're going to sleep." And I just brought him right down to the deck, and he woke up a little bit later, and he's like, "I'm never gonna mess with you again." I was like, "That's right."
Yeah, that's as a tactic, it's very effective, and I don't think that choking someone is a poor tactic every single time. I think that you have to be able to do it right.
Yes,
and, sitting on someone's head for 8 minutes is a bad tactic.
That is terrible. There's 4 of them there, and it looked they already had handcuffs on him at that point.
Yeah, like what are you doing at that point?
If you're that concerned with him, put some handcuffs on his ankles too.
And there's a cruiser right there. Why not put him in the cruiser? I don't know. It's very odd. It's a very odd situation, and it didn't make sense to me. It seemed like there was some personal malice there or something.
Yeah. My understanding is there was some previous incidents between George Floyd and the officer.
Yeah.
So I don't know how true that is.
Yeah.
But that's my understanding. But
yeah, the mental health aspect of all that, like everything I've looked at, it says that, like, stressful situations, you have to try to detach. And that's the only way that you can get to do that is to immerse yourself in it and do it over and over again. Like I said, train jiu-jitsu or something like that. Or I've experienced something like that when I did Muay Thai. You see these Muay Thai shorts on the back of the wall. I trained like a lot for like 2 years in Muay Thai, and I got beat up a lot. Like, you spar with some of those instructors and they wreck you. And you're walking out of that gym.
Supposed to.
Yeah, you're walking out of that gym with a black eye and you're limping. But you also, like, the first time you really get cracked in the ring, like really get hit hard, like your eyes go wide. It doesn't even hurt that bad really, but you're just so surprised that you don't know how to react, and it's very weird. And the instructors know that, and like they basically set me up. I remember it vividly. Like the first 2 sparring sessions, it's very light, just kind of pawing, and then like the third one, he did the little paw my hands out of the way from my guard, and it just cracked me with a straight right. And then immediately he's like, come on, come at me. And he's trying to get me to keep going, to get over that fear. And
Right.
then once you get used to it, and if you keep sparring, because if I went back and sparred now, I would have the fear all over again because I'm not proficient anymore. But
Right.
once you do that and you keep going, now you get to the point where you can get hurt and you still remember what you should do in different situations, and you don't freak out until you you catch like a knee in the stomach and then you just crumble to the floor. But at that point you can't fight anymore. So
yeah, I remember at Reagan we used to do a lot of combatives, unsanctioned combatives, I guess I'll call it. And I mean, I remember the first couple times that I had gotten into a tussle.
Yeah,
I was like, I've never really wrestled before.
Yeah.
But I mean, whether it was in birthing or in the plant or wherever, I eventually got used to it, and I got pretty good. I got pretty good after all that practice.
Were you in birthing when I boxed Mogan?
Yes, I have. I have the video.
That boy pieced me up. I got beat.
I still have all those videos.
Yeah,
on my camera. It's
so
right there.
Yeah, that was.
I can send it to you if you want.
I actually would like to see it. He beat me up. I remember I had a headache for like 2 days after that one.
And then there's on there also is me versus Toledo.
Oh,
where I chipped his tooth.
That boy's a hoss too. He's a big boy. Like
we had some good fights. We had 2 fights. One where we boxed and one where we wrestled.
Yeah.
So
I never wrestled anybody. I boxed a few different people, and I remember Mogan was the memorable one because, Mogan, he can box. He knows how to box, and
he does boxing all the time.
Exactly.
He still boxes.
He owns a gym now.
He has a gym. Yeah.
And I had trained for at that point maybe like a year and a half in Muay Thai, so I had a general idea. But he's master student, and he showed me.
I'll have to dig out I can see the camera with my own eyes right now. I just put it away the other day.
I'd love to see it. I'd love to see if
I'll have to pull it off.
If it happened the way I remember it happening, because I have like memories of how it happened, and I'd like to see if I remember it correctly.
I'm pretty sure your fight's on there.
Yeah, I remember
it was from like the 2 big ones we did, the 2 big fight nights we did. I have all the video.
I remember at the end he didn't knock me out, but I remember getting dropped at the end, and that was like towards the end of the round, and it was over. But
yeah, I'm the videographer for most of it, and then I think I had to go out and watch during one of the fight nights. And Mag Pantai took over, so it gets a little silly.
Mag.
It gets a little silly. So
yeah.
Let's wrap this up though. We're getting close to time here.
Yep.
So that being said, check us out on YouTube. I will put out something. You'll be able to finally see our beautiful faces in this beautiful post-Navy beard that I'm growing. And we'll start because I've had some requests for a few months now for me to put clips and stuff on YouTube, so I'm gonna finally do that. I have the capability. I'm back. I had my desktop before I was on my laptop. I have hard drive space, most importantly, and I have the capability to do video editing again. Yeah. So we'll put some stuff up on YouTube. We'll try to break it down into clips and then the whole episode, I think, and then we'll also be on the podcast distros. So. But yeah, we're still looking for guests. If you'd like to be on, let us know. I know we have one lined up for like a month from now ish. I'm still trying to get Mick Pond Hurt on here. I don't know if he's going to come on. I sent him a message. He seemed real confused about it. So
maybe he's not a podcast person. I don't know.
Well, he knows what podcasts are. So he's older. He's like in his 70s.
Yeah.
And so he knows what podcasts are. I think he's Confused because I don't know. I have to talk to him some more. I sent him like 2 messages like a week ago, so we're gonna work on that. But I read his book. He has a great book. I'd love to have him on. He was a nuke and he was a McPon. So if I can get him on here, I think that'd be great. But if you know anyone that you think might want to be on here, or if you know anyone that has struggled with mental health, or mental health professionals, all of the above. Feel free, reach out to us. We'd love to have you on. We've been doing this now for 3.5 months ish. We've missed a couple of weeks here and there for different reasons, but it's been enjoyable, and we'd love to have more people on. So just reach out, let us know, and we'll schedule it in and make some time for you.
Absolutely. All right. Well, with that said, I'll go ahead and share the socials. So you can find us on Facebook at /reboot pods. So that's with an S, Facebook /reboot pods. Our email is going to be rebootpod@gmail.com. That's rebootpod@gmail.com. And our Twitter handle is @reboot_pod. And, you can get a hold of us on there if you want to be on the show, if you just want to communicate with us, if you have a question, if you're looking for mental health services. Hopefully myself or David can point you in the right direction for stuff like that.
Which reminds me, Josh, if you're listening, I did forget, but I'm going to look it up right now when we finish this podcast. The resources for you. I forgot. I feel terrible now.
I mean, to be fair, you have been very, very busy, and you remembered right now because we're doing this thing.
And we're talking about resources. I did remember. I'm gonna hold on. I got my whiteboards over here now.
I mean, it's not like you just moved like hundreds of miles back to your home and transitioned out of the Navy and looking for a job and getting back acclimated with your family.
I don't give myself any space for failure. Okay. I give myself no space for failure here. I feel terrible. Okay. So that being said, reach out to us anytime. But yeah, we're going to wrap this up today. You all have a great day, great week, great night, and keep fighting the good fight.
You've been listening to Reboot with David Kagi and Jared Standerford. We hope that you've gotten some useful information from this podcast, and we want you to know we're proud to have you in our family. Mental health is important, and we hope that we've helped break down some barriers. Be sure to catch us next time, and if you have questions, comments, or if you'd like to be on the next show, send us an email at rebootpod@gmail.com. This is Reboot, signing off.